Canada and helping out with the waiting room and the chat and that sort of thing. I had a quiz for you. Yes, I would like to know, with this piece in mind, locus iste, this place, what is a place where you have felt very happy spending sort of still time? I'm not talking about a movie theater where you're actively watching a movie or something, or just a place where you might sit. Do you have a favorite place, or is there a place that comes to your mind when I say that? And go ahead and drop that in the chat. I'd just be interested to know what sort of place. You can describe the place, or you can list a specific location on the planet, or off. I suspect not too many of us have been off. I certainly haven't been off, at least not very far. It's still, YouTube seems to be misbehaving, I'm afraid. Oh, and you're not the people to tell that to. If there's anyone who happens to be on the Facebook chat members group and might drop a little apology for the YouTube having trouble, I would be grateful for that. Now all of us will do it. That's solved, I suppose. And maybe it will start up partway through, but it's beyond me at this stage, so off we go. Right, I'm going to take a look at what you've been saying. Oh, nice. Good answers. I suppose everyone can read these as they go along. Antelope Valley in the California desert. That sounds like a magical place, Cynthia. Hello and welcome, thank you. The beach. Audley End in England. That has a nice feel to say. Audley End in England. It just back and forth between the vowels. Very nice, Anna. The woods in back of your house in Maine. Oak Preserve. Oh, waterfall in your backyard. Oh, wow. That sounds great, Robin. I'm just thinking of all of these places and how for this piece we each need to have our own place. Outside under the clouds, Evergreen Lake, any place in the woods. Scrolling quickly, Galliano Island. That sounds nice, Mary. Nice location. In fact, Joss and I were just talking about her background, which I think is British Columbia, right? Yes. Oh, Cape Cod. That's some great answers. Place in Kyoto where you get together to sing. Sumiyo, that sounds like a very special place indeed. I have the other side of this question. Anyone still want to answer the previous one? It'll just confuse me now. The other side of this is actually, I think, connected a little bit to why Gareth wrote the piece. You know, he was stuck in his flat with his piano and thinking about a sense of place and how that can have multiple facets. So the other facet of this is, what is a place, and you don't have to share anything you don't want to, but I'm curious, what is a place that has challenged you? A place you may have felt like you were unable to leave at the point where you wanted to leave it, or you didn't really want to be there in the first place. And if those get confused with the places that are our favorite place to be, that'll be interesting. Ted, good to see you again. The Office. Oh, yes. If you put a capital O on that. Yeah. Times Square. Oh, Janine, I've been to Times Square and I've been terrified by it. I was there at the wrong time at one point, and there were just crowds a little beyond what I could handle, though I think some people find it special. My last job. Sorry to hear that. Yeah. Sheltering apartment. Lynn Samuels, that's an excellent answer, and almost specifically what I think Gareth was thinking about when he was writing the piece. A place where we've been sheltering during the pandemic, yeah. Remote learning, yeah. Walmart, packed subway, certain streets in certain places. Oh, interesting. When you're in a place, someone was saying a grocery store with unmasked people, but more generally, just thinking about in a place where you might not feel that everyone's treating sort of public safety the same way. That's interesting. Yeah, crowded places. Oh yeah, some interesting stories here. And thank you for joining me in that little roller coaster of tone. I appreciate your willingness to go through that, because not to end on the negatives, but I think what this piece challenges me to do, at least the way. Well, and we've heard a lot from Gareth about in his sessions about why he wrote it, and so I'm not really guessing here, though I will say, for any piece you sing or perform in any way, I always want to get inside the mind of the composer, even if it's a composer who's long gone and I have no idea specifically whether I'm right or wrong. I think it's really important to find your personal meaning in it. I think that's a challenge for us. So, yeah, finding a place where you have to fight a little bit to find your peace and figure out how to stay there. I think that's part of what he's going at in the piece. He's almost said as much a number of times, though I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. But yeah, I hope that's useful for you to think through. How can you take those places and see them as part of the world too? I don't want to get too deep into the esoteric side of this. We're going to start with some warm-ups now. Thanks for your patience with that. Is my volume still doing okay? How about if I play a chord on the piano? Yeah, all right. It's interesting to get the balance there, but thank you. I've got to keep an eye on my computer. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to say, I suspect those of you who are here for various reasons. You may want some extra tips. You may be enjoying the social nature of it. You may be procrastinating or still working on part of things. And all of that is absolutely okay. I'll try to address all of that. I've got a few things I want to run through. And if in the meantime you want to drop any spots in the chat that you're struggling with, and we're hoping for some advice in a group rather than just working on it on your own and not being quite sure how to tackle it. If you have any questions about advice for the music itself or for singing technique and how we approach this music, go ahead and drop them in. I'm going to have Joss turn the chat off a little bit later when we get into the main rehearsal, so it's not popping up. If someone's on a smaller device, they can't really stop that from happening as easily. So now is a good time to drop some of that in. And in the meantime, I do indeed have some nuggets for you, and it's up to you to decide what level of wisdom they are. But let's start with some stretching. And I have a special stretch for you here. I would like to do a seated stretch. Many of you will probably stand in order to record this, but I know some people will record it just sitting because that's easier to set up their camera, or some people might record it sitting because that's what works for their body or the way that they sing. And all of that's fine. Something to keep in mind is a lot of choir rehearsals, we actually spend a good portion of them sitting. And we talk a lot about posture when we're standing. So let's talk about sitting posture beyond the admonition, sit up, don't slouch. Let's go beyond that a little bit. So whatever device you are seated on, you may be on a chair, which might have a back, in which case I encourage you to take your bottom and scooch it right up against the bottom of that back so that you don't have space there and forcing your shoulders to lean back if you lean back. So if you're in a chair and you want to use the back of the chair and you're able, go ahead and make sure the bottom of your spine is against the back of the chair as well rather than out away, because that keeps us a little better. Another thing to think about with seated singing is trying to get more verticality. We can, when we're seated, still find a way to have a sort of singing placement of our body from the waist up. If you're seated and you're in such a situation where you need to be leaning on the back of the chair, having a back that supports you well is part of the key. If you do not need to be leaning on the back, then I'm actually on a stool so that I'm not tempted. And finding that vertical place can often simply involve not having your feet out in front of you. I'll show you what I mean. If my feet are out in front of me on the floor, I have a forward-backward balance that involves leaning into my feet a little bit. Go ahead and feel that. If you put your feet out in front of you and lean forward a little bit, lean back a little bit, and feel the weight of your feet go up. Yeah. So if I take the feet and I tuck them underneath me, if you can do this, go ahead and try it. If you can't, just think about balance in whatever way you're able in the seat you're in. And trying to think about being vertical over there. And if I don't have my feet out in front of me, it's harder for me to lean forward or backward, the same as it would be if I were standing with my feet planted side by side rather than one in front of me or one behind me. So that's a little trick you can use in choir if you find yourself sitting for long portions of a rehearsal because you're in the front row, but the director just won't stand the choir up because they're focused on other things. That's something to keep in mind. Okay. Using our chair or our stool, go ahead and grab hold of something on it and use that to just gently pull yourself around into a stretch. Just a gentle. You can also grab your knee if your legs are out front and there's nothing else to reach, like me on my stool, and just take a nice breath, a nice slow in and out. I'm going to do the other side now. Nice and slow, very gentle. Don't pull hard. You know, in various stretching exercises and things like yoga, they talk about doing a stretch, taking a breath, and as you breathe out, just relaxing into that stretch a little bit further. That's something you might think about there. I would like you to go ahead, if you have sides on the thing you're sitting on and you're able to grab a hold of them down below you, go ahead and grab hold of the seat and pull yourself down just a little bit. Again, gently. I'm not asking for you to hurt your sits bones or anything, but just a gentle little pull down. And then if you got your thumbs on top, or maybe put your hands flat on the seat if there's room, and just give a little push up. A little push up. And let's move that into a shoulder roll and a back. And go ahead and reach your arms out and give a nice stretch. Deep breath and out. All right, and let's come around. Let's actually go backwards like that, and come around into a big hug of an imaginary large tree, and then just keep it going. Squeeze the pillow and give yourself a little embrace there, and take a deep breath. And out. Okay, good. Swing a little bit. Slightly faster motions or more active if you're able, and go ahead and drop your chin down. No need to go so far as to feel that you're crunching your larynx or anything, just nice and loose and gentle, and just roll a little bit to each side, very slowly. And as you roll, feel each fiber in the opposite side of your neck, just relaxing a little bit. One direction, then the other, and just slowly while thinking about each fiber in your neck. Muscles have fibers, right? I'm not making that up. Yes. All right, let's warm our faces up a little bit. I'll bring it in close. So, Gareth has been talking a lot about the jaw. If you missed his session yesterday, jaw tension is definitely a thing for all singers. Some of us are just better at managing it than others. It's not that we don't all deal with it. Tongue tension can be another thing. Let's start by giving ourselves, if you're able and willing, just a little face massage. Loosen the jaw, let it move around. Chew slowly. I don't know if you've ever worked with cows. I grew up on a farm. Imagine chewing your cud, just very peaceful. Get the tongue moving around. Move the lips. I'm not going to do this now. If we ever do it, it should probably be a special session, and we should probably just invite him. But I worked with a countertenor at one point on a workshop for a week. His name's Drew Minter, wonderful singer and technician. And he actually does a whole session on self-face massage, but you have to wash your hands first because it goes in and everything. It's pretty wild, so it should probably be a separate session. But if you just want to think a little bit about resonance, go ahead and massage a little bit right below your eyes. Again, for anyone who doesn't feel comfortable doing any of these things, it's absolutely fine. Just thinking about your resonance there, and give me a little N hum. Like you're saying yum yum, only with an N. Okay. And go ahead and massage right where your jaw attaches in front of your ears. And give me an NG hum. Maybe while slightly chewing, just to show that your jaw is not locked. And then Gareth gave us a nice back of the hands, just a downward motion. It doesn't have to be the back of your hands, it's just the way I've seen some people do it. Just trying to get that nice, relaxed, tall vowels. Thank you. All right. If you know you're going to record standing, you're welcome to stand or sit throughout this rehearsal as works best for you. I'm going to do some vocalises at this point. First, just a little bit of getting the breath support going, would you say ha, 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 ha? More demonstrative, and really think about that diaphragm kicking. Ha, 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 ha. Ha, 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 ha. Great. And now, vi, ve, va. 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 I can see some of you are not doing as long of a V as I am. The idea here is to get enough resonance and back pressure so that you're really singing through the consonants rather than just minimalizing them. So I'm not looking for vive. Some choir directors will ask you to get straight to the vowel, but in this sort of Latin, I think it's nice to spend a bit of time on the consonants, especially in the middle of words. Iste, not iste, like you're springing through the consonant as fast as possible. So, viveva. Can you make it one phrase so you never stop singing? The V's, I don't want them to be speed bumps. I want them to be part of the flow. Ready? And viveva. 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 How many were not too distracted by the vive va exercise to be thinking about taking good breaths in between each one? Excellent! Oh, more waves than we sometimes get. That's great. YouTube's still not working. Yeah, I'm not sure. It might have just started, but I don't think there's anything I can do about that. Yeah, apologies to, well, anyone who's not here and trying to be on YouTube. There we are. I suppose catch-up should work because we are recording it in multiple ways. Backup plans and everything. Thanks for the checking, though, Katya. And let's go now to... Okay, I have a couple of exercises for us, connected specifically to some concerns that have been coming up about this piece. One of them is I've had some folks ask about vibrato, and I've noticed that Tori and Jamie have mostly dodged talking about vibrato, and I think that's a very good idea. In fact, a lot of people dodge talking about vibrato because it tends to be very politicized in terms of singing technique teaching, in terms of the singing pedagogy world. However, I am not afraid. And I like to experiment with things, and so maybe some of you have been singing with vibrato for years, maybe some of you are concerned because you're not sure how to sing without vibrato, and maybe some of you have not ever used much vibrato before, and you're curious what Gareth is after and how to achieve it in a happy way. Well, very quickly, vibrato, and I think Jamie did get this far, is just a natural release of tension. If you do an isometric exercise of pushing your arms together, isometric exercises are great because they don't require gravity, so you can do them on the space station and stuff. So pushing your palms of your hands together, if you push hard enough, it'll naturally shake a little bit. And that's just a release of tension and making sure the muscles don't lock up. When you're singing very powerfully, as people did for centuries before the invention of amplification, in order to try and sing over bigger and bigger orchestras and opera houses, louder vocal techniques, and just that's part of the human voice if you develop it to a certain stage, or you'll probably hurt yourself within a certain style of singing. So that's something to keep in mind, is that a lot of singers like to talk about vibrato being natural, not something that's produced. However, we do have evidence from treatises in history that the production of different types of vibrato in some backwater corners of singing technique was considered an ornamental device. I digress. Back to vibrato. With this idea of it being something that you should achieve naturally, let me tell you, I arrived at Oberlin Conservatory as a freshman singing straight tone, and the teacher said to me for 3 years straight, vibrato should be natural, don't attempt to produce vibrato. I ended up having to attempt to produce it to discover how it worked. So I would create the wobble, and he would say, "Oh, that sounds great, Graham. Was that, what were," and I was like, "Well, I was adding it in like you told me not to." So One of the ways to get there, though, that I have since discovered, is to move the voice quicker than you really can with full breath support. So here is my exercise. That was a longer intro than I meant to give. I apologize. Right? That's the exercise. You may have done it before in a choir, but I want to do it specifically too fast. So, singing a downward. Thanks so much, Jane. I just got a note about telling people what's happening on YouTube. Thank you. That's very helpful. So, that's the music. Ready? And go. Can you sing it with a sense of real forward breath support and very very driving sense of legato and line? Up a half step. It's a very simple exercise, right? Now I want each note to become a triplet with its upper neighbor. So it's going to go no H articulations. You can't go ha 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 ha. That's cheating and not the point of the exercise, although that is fun and we can do it for other reasons. So just with the voice switching the pitch by attempting if it feels a little bit sloppy, you're doing it right. Or you're extremely advanced. 2, ready. I'm slowing it down slightly and getting a little more accurate. If that's hard to do accurately for your musical ear, or if it's not, do it a little faster. That's an exercise you can play around with. And it really just helps free some of the natural tension that we use here to hold accurate pitch. The better ear you have as a singer, the harder it is to develop vibrato early on if it's something you're trying to do, because you want to hold on to the pitch, and freeing things up a little bit in here is part of the trick. At any rate, take or leave that exercise. It's late in the game in terms of recordings, although they're still not due for another week and a half. May 9th, right? Week and a weekend. May 9th is, I believe, the deadline. Oh, I'm seeing a different date. Let me look at what I've typed in instead of trying to memorize it. Yes, 9th. 9. Yes, good. Okay. Yeah, okay. And range was another thing. It's got a high note for altos, especially if you're more of a choral alto, and it certainly goes up to a factus. I don't really have that note, sopranos, but some of you do, I'm sure. But if you're struggling with that a little bit, and what a great vowel. Thanks, Gareth. Oh, my favorite for high notes, he says sarcastically. Here's an exercise for this sort of thing, and it's going to be on oo, and it's going to start low. So if you are a soprano or a tenor, don't worry about the lowest note until we've worked our way up if it's too low for you. It goes and that's the basic exercise. You may have done it before. It's pretty simple. It's a normal one with a third on the top. Go ahead and join me. Ready? There are a couple of challenges. One isn't terribly relevant to the piece, which is, well, actually, there's a place where the sopranos leap a 7th up. That's pretty intense. Which is starting on a low note and going not just an octave, but a 10th. You're going further without stopping the voice. Then you have to think when you start the voice, not about that being a low note, but about the final note where you're going to be. And you want to land, you want to breathe in on the vowel you're going to sing on. Great tip for the piece. O, locus, lo. I should remember that in the rehearsal when we get there. That was my plan, but I didn't write it down. I just realized that was the thing I was trying to remember that I knew I wanted to put down. So let's remember it. But breathing right now on oo because we're singing on it. And we'll go down just a little bit. And I want you to breathe in on oo and think about the high note rather than setting yourself down in the basement for the low note. Ready? And breathing on ooh. Sorry, I lost the key. Ooh. Breathe on ooh. Ooh. Why do we want to breathe on the vowel we're about to sing on? Fewer things you need to move when you begin singing, so you can set your voice in a little happier place with a little more time to settle it. Okay, the other trap of this piece, which I think is very relevant to Locos Iste, is the fact that you can flow through it. Great. And then it slows down. And then it goes back up. So the temptation is to right? And so on those long notes, of which there are plenty in Locos Iste, yeah? Can you keep your voice constantly fed by a living stream of air? Of course you are when you sing, but sometimes we think about sitting on a note. We think about dwelling on a note. In fact, I've heard the term hold a note. And I think what we really want to do is rock a note, swing a note, caress a note, something more active. Try to get rid of the word hold as an analogy for what we're doing to a long note. Yeah? Okay, so keep it vibrant, and here's my recommendation. Ooh. Come up with some motion you can do that shows vibrancy in the note. It could be twinkle fingers. It could be slow if that works better for you. For me, it's a quick energy, and I like this sort of little dynamo going with my fingers. That's what I fall back on. Your choice. Ready? And go. Okay, we're going to do these again, and I'm going to go higher, and we're going to do it on est. Good luck. As you do this arpeggio, keep the momentum from the bottom note going straight through. Don't do any gear shifts, just plow right on through. Plow is probably a bad word to be using too. Ready? And you can release that jaw on the top note. Your eh at the bottom can be a little shallower than and if you in fact want to do this instead of that, try it out. See what you think. Where were we? There we are. Ready? And go. Some of the basses and altos may have dropped out or dropped the octave by now, and that's absolutely fine, but sopranos, I gotta take you a little further, and tenors, you're welcome to come along. Same one. Ready? And and if you've got it, like spinning plates. Nice. Sings at King's. King's is great. They have such a nice approach to singing there. YouTube went down the other day. Yeah, I wonder if that's part of what's going on. Well, I've done all the right things, so we tried. And thank you again for that note someone posted in the chat on YouTube. That was very useful. Let's get to the music. Get your music out, please. I'm going to share my screen so you got the sound, and then I'm going to give you the goals of this sing-through. There's my screen. There's Jamie. So, goal number one, which I probably should have listed last, is we are going to practice clapping with Jamie, because it's never too early to start practice clapping, especially if you're going to then pick up your music. There is time to do that, but one wants to have a plan. Other things. Gareth in the last rehearsal was particularly talking about our own body movement. He talks about the beginning and end of the piece being very still, not just musically, but visually. So, and he talks about moving more. He talks about at one point the cello sawing away at the strings with the bow, and more passionate chords where we're singing cluster chords like this one. He writes a lot of exciting harmonies in the piece, and it sort of builds that way, both harmonically and rhythmically. It gets faster rhythms. So at those points, he was saying you can be more animated and move more. This sing through, that's the thing I would like you to think about the most. And then I'll say the last thing first, or the first thing last, which is let's practice the clap with Jamie as well. Have a sing through and think about stillness when the music is still and more motion when the music is more passionate. Although stillness can be its own form of passion. Yes, see if you can find that too. Off we go. Have a good sing.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I hope that was a useful run through. I'm sure we had some thoughts there. I've got some questions. If all is well now, I think you can just send me direct questions, and they should get through, and I should be able to chat back with you. Um, ah, got a question about, got a couple of comments that I just want to share. Yeah, Gareth challenged folks to try singing it through without their music. And I think a lot of people found that they knew it better than they thought they did. If you get to the point where you are comfortable doing it without your music, that would certainly be a wonderful thing, because I think it's very easy for the music to become a little bit of something that we hide behind, or a little bit of a barrier between us and communicating with the audience. Certainly, some people struggle with memory in different ways, and that's certainly not a requirement for this, but it's something to play around with if you think you've got the space for it, and feel that with the piece. Yeah. And Michael Rowe had a question, and I want to see if I can allow him to unmute while being clever. So, Michael, are you up for... Did that work? Yes, I think so. Hello, Michael.
Hi. Hello there, Graham.
Where are you joining us from?
Just outside central London in the UK.
Oh, so it's morning for you.
Yes, it's 20 to 3 in the morning.
Well, that's why I offer these sessions but you're welcome. It's so good to have you. I'm honored. What is your question?
Well, my question is about measure 74, because it's how they sing it, and it's about this is going to sound really bad, but I would, the analogy I'd like to give is this: shouldn't it sound less more T. Vicar and more kind of Passion of Christ? It should be more kind of passionate, and it should rise.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So what I mean by that, let me find it. Give me a sec. One second. Right. So I don't mind singing it, but it's just I just got to find the right piece. And this is ridiculous because I actually do know this. But no, but it's because it goes when he kind of goes. Let me find the right page. What is it?
Talking about the Adeo, that part.
That's it. Yeah. Adeo, Adeo. Should it keep rising? Yeah. Should it keep rising? And what I'm saying is, so each time should it keep rising, because that's what.
Oh yes. That's an excellent question.
Is it Jamie that sings it? I'm not sure, but it's flat. It sounds terrible because I've never been in choir, but to me it sounds kind of dead. And I've been listening to you, and you seem to have more kind of passion in your kind of voice. Yeah.
I won't tell Jamie you said that. All right. Well, let's stop digging while we're ahead, shall we? I do have some reflections on what you're saying there. One of which is actually this is really relevant, I think, for the piece. And thank you so much for your question. We're listening and singing along with a track of solo voice singers.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to be a huge choir of many people, and that's what I think. I think Gareth wrote it for a large community of voices. You know,
Right.
if we'd had more time and felt that it would have good payback, it might have been wise to multi-track ourselves several dozen times so that you could be singing along with a big choir. So I think our challenge is to remember that we will be singing along with a big choir, and it's going to have a very different effect.
And when we get to the crescendo, that est part, should we kind of tail that off so it's kind of a lot softer? I think Gareth mentioned, I'm not sure if it was that part, but he was saying about
He's talking about a softer spot. I think he was talking technically at that point.
Right.
Because it is certainly something where we can feel really strained if we're holding a high note. And it might be if I were singing the soprano part down the octave, that would be very high for me as a bass. At that point, releasing the voice rather than clenching onto it is probably a good idea.
Right. Okay.
But, thank you so much for your question. And I think another thing that we can do through this section is the parts rise if you're not a bass. So that makes it a little easier, doesn't it? We've got the sopranos going all the way up. The altos, in fact, go. And even the tenor is climbing up there. The bass has to go down. Adeo, adeo, adeo. And we do get to climb one note at the end, but that makes it a little bit harder for the bass part in terms of playing our part in the choir. And I think it can help to crescendo a little bit through that, even though it's already marked fortissimo. Thanks. Yeah, put emphasis on each word. The color, I did hear that, Ted. Yes, the color is red-blooded, he said at one point. I don't know how you feel about that. Yes, and full of life and rich in tone. Yes. All right. Yes, full of life, I think, is an excellent set of words for that. And it's harder when you're a bass. Sometimes playing our part in the team means you've got a bigger challenge in terms of keeping that going. But I would actually like to rehearse a little bit a sense of microphonic singing, which was mentioned. I want to make sure we're all on the same page here. So when we're singing in a large concert hall, we really project the consonants. And when you're singing near to the recording device, as you will be, we don't tend to do as much of that if we're used to singing with the microphone. So the big st at the beginning, and even in the high points of the piece, it could be too much from a choir of this with microphones that close. But especially at the end of the piece, you'll see how he gives a very soft ST at the end. Normally we have to boost that a little bit to carry in the hall, but make sure that you're doing it quite softly, please, when we get to those points. I'm looking for other questions just to make sure I prioritize those, because my plan was to look at transitions primarily, and I will do that if I have a bit. Put the music in. Oh, I love that, Judy. I put the music in my pocket when I know it, but still want it near for confidence. That's fantastic. I should do that. I did once put something I was trying to memorize under my pillow. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to make a difference, but it felt like it would, and maybe it did. Who knows? Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing a question about recording in one earphone while you record. Oh, Cynthia, this is a good question in case anyone's not sure. But do check the FAQs for this. Actually, I don't know if they mentioned this. My favorite way to record is with the headphones one on and one off, because that allows me to hear my voice in the room and hear the guide track. And actually, when I've done recording for a while, here's a new tip that I don't think I've mentioned to anyone before. When I've done recording for a while, my ears get tired of listening in that way and they get a little lazy about it. So I'll actually take my headphones and I'll swap them for the next take, and it makes me hear in a completely fresh way. Yeah, actually, for anyone who hasn't done that before, would you please sing with me? That opening phrase that everyone sings together at measure 17. And would you put one hand over one ear? Ready? Other ear. Ready? So the real challenge here is to make sure that we're with the conductor, which is not just visual but audio, and singing with the section leaders, the swingles, and yet that the microphone cannot hear what we're singing along with, can only hear your voice. So that's why we need headphones. And in fact, be careful. If you're wearing earbuds and you take one out and it swings forward toward the microphone, sometimes you can get some exciting background mix, and that makes it harder to do the audio. These are good questions that are coming through. So yeah, I recommend practicing that way. It may not be the most comfortable thing, but it's going to happen during the recording, so the more you can make yourself comfortable with it, or at least how to manage it, the better for you. Hopefully you'll enjoy that. Good. Okay, just glancing through. Emphasis on the words. Yes, I wanted to talk a little bit about text stress, actually, Jane. So I want to go through that section. Would everyone please look at the part that Michael was asking about too? That was bar 74, measure 74, if I recall. The measure number, just checking, yes, indeed it is, and I'm going to play it for us to sing along with the recording in a moment, probably go from around 70 just to get a run into it, but before we do, just pulling up, where did that go? I need to get a bigger screen. That's what it turns out that I need to do. Okay, there I am, measure 74, found the right window, and yeah. So you're saying adeo factus est a number of times, and this is the final part where we're finally down to a couple of words, a pair of words. Adeo, adeo. Let's all sing bar 74 several times in a row, please. And adeo, adeo. That's the way the text stress goes, but we're singing it fortissimo. And so what I would like you to do is, would you just sing the opening note for me? And hold it. And what I'd like you to do while you're doing that is try to find rich, ringing sound. Nice, high resonance in your, a tall at the back of the throat. Raise your soft palate there. NG. There's your note. And give me a big fortissimo sound. If you've got roommates, drop them an apology, or if you can't do that because of your roommates, just pretend. Here we go. That is not the most important word of the phrase. It's a very small word. Deo is the strong word of the phrase. Although we could say Deo, of God, or by God, or by God. So you can actually switch this around a little bit. But would you get rid of the consonants? Speed it up. Again at that speed. Faster. One more time. Add the D of Deo back in, but don't let it break up that beautiful line of sound you've got going. Ready? And Deo. Again. Deo. One more time. Deo. Right. So getting a lot of richness in the sound there, but it all goes through different parts. And the next part we go is, right? We break into harmony, and then we finally break into the widest harmony we've had at this point in the piece. Going back a little bit, you sing Ad Deo factus est 4 times, and it says crescendo poco a poco, which means get louder little by little. So what dynamic are we at measure 66? There's nothing really marked. We've been forte, so we're probably still forte, but if we're crescendoing only little by little, if you listen to the track, it actually drops dynamic there a little bit, and I think it's wise of us to go along with that so we have more room to grow. But here are your notes at that point. This is 66. 2, ready, and go. I'm playing a wrong note or two there, which is why I'm pausing. But actually, I also just want to say, so you said that 4 times, and they've been talking in rehearsals. We've been talking in rehearsals about trying to bring new meaning each time. If you think that it shouldn't have been written 4 times, and you disagree with Gareth about that, too bad. It may not be your fault that you have to sing it 4 times, but it is your problem. It's one of my favorite quotes by a director that I studied with during my student teaching years, Paul Gulsvig. It's not your fault, but it is your problem. And your problem here is to convince everyone listening, which means possibly even yourself, that you have a need to say that text that many times. And in fact, not just 4 times, but Adeo, Adeo, Adeo factus, a 5th time with a little false start, or maybe a more confident start where you want to try again and you want to say it more. Come up with different things that you're saying with each of those. Don't just say Ad Deo factus est. For me, if I'm singing about this place is holy, is the way I think of this piece. This is the point where is holy. That's what we're singing over and over again. It's special. It's unique in my experience. You can do long or short phrases as you want, as long as you can hold those in your head. And you can think maybe of that special place, but then think of a different aspect of it. When the cicadas are singing and it's very peaceful under my tree. When it starts to rain just a little bit, but not enough to make me go inside. Adeo, adeo. Come up with as much variety as you can and just drop that on there. We're going to sing from bar 66 now. I'm going to share, and off we go. As soon as where's the share button? It moved. Ha! Gotta keep an eye on these things. Sharing, muting myself, and here we go. A little before 66 if I can find it. I muted myself. If you find it too distracting to think of a bunch of different language-based phrases, if you think about a special place that this piece could be about, any place you like, or the challenge of a difficult place, if you can think about looking at a different aspect of the place. So imagine I had my tree. I've got my tree. I've got Adeo as a leaf over there. I've got Adeo as the horizon over the hill. I've got Adeo as the stream that's trickling down. And all I'm doing is being in this one place. I'm not getting distracted by thinking of language or anything, but I'm looking to slightly different aspects of the place without really breaking stride. But still, it's a little bit new each time. That's another way you can approach that. You got me going on that. Thank you. I'm reading through and making sure I'm not missing anything else here. Getting some excellent, an excellent tip from Joanna or Joanna. Apologies if I said your name wrong one of those times or both. Perhaps tape over the spare earbud. That's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah. Oh man, I'll probably just put like rubber bands and muffle. That would look weird on my video with my headphones. Anyway, that's a great tip. That's a great tip. Looking at other questions. Breathing. Oh yeah. Where your breath runs out, stagger breathe. We're such a huge choir. I know we can talk all day about breathing techniques, and we can work on those, but for me, a piece like this, it's all about making sure that you're singing with enough breath. And the moment you're not singing with enough breath, you just mime for a second and take a really good breath and come back in. That is my favorite way to sing, is in a large choir where we can do that, because it's something you can hold a chord forever with a large choir. It's, well, food, water. Actually, this is an interesting thought. You know, there's a piece by John Cage called As Slowly as Humanly Possible, and they're building an organ, pipe by pipe, in Germany somewhere. It's going to last 600 some years. It's really interesting. There was a pitch change recently, and I don't think there'll be another one for months. But, you know, so we can think about that aspect of the choir. Anytime you're worried about breath in a large group like this, thousands of singers, think about the aspect of the choir that is superhuman, that doesn't fall apart when you pause to take a breath and leave out a note here or there. That's a lovely way of thinking. And there's music that requires that, and it's hard to sing in small groups convincingly. Yeah. I like this. Think that you're Maggie Smith in Downton Abbey to get more space. Any Downton Abbey fans out there? I confess I studied Downton Abbey in order to better understand England while I was there. I also studied Monty Python, and it led me far astray. Although I did have an interaction or two with my PhD supervisor that was very Monty Python-esque, I must say. Oh, that's beautiful, Sally. Since the chat's closed, I feel like I have to share these. I dedicate each phrase to a person that has recently passed. That's really beautiful. For some of us, that might be a little heavy. For others, that might be really meaningful. So again, with all of these things, make sure you're finding the place where the piece is for you. These are all just thoughts and tips and suggestions. Garrett's writing is indeed brilliant with this. Yes. You're close there, Barbara. I actually helped get Robert lured into York. He wasn't there while I was studying. As John Potter and Joe Wainwright. Wonderful guys. But I digress. I want to make sure we do another sing-through. And I feel like we've got some excellent questions that have come through so far. And I'm just checking to see if I've missed anything on my urgent list. I don't know how many tenors are here tonight, but I did want to mention that you have some moving lines that are a little bit challenging. If you'll just take, and everyone can look at this because I think it's useful for life and singing in choirs, because someday you're going to have this line. I am looking at 41. The sopranos have this very lyrical thing. Inestimabile. And the alto, tenor, and bass have that cluster chord. And then the tenors just have this little extra thing we do. Mobile sacramentum. That's a trap. Just quarter notes in a row like that. Gareth didn't make it easy to phrase. No one ever does when they write quarter notes, but I think it can be phrased well. Make sure you're moving. Mobile sacramentum. Linking every note one into the other, as indeed Robert Hollingworth would say, for the person who listed knowing who that is. Mobile sacramentum. Keeping that moving and flowing. And if you look, where was my other spot? Oh yes, earlier. 33, the system just above it. Look at that tenor line. Locus iste. That's challenging to get good phrasing on, but look at the cello. Locus iste. The cello has also, tenors, a moving quarter note part. And so if you're singing tenor, think about doing a duet with the cello. I don't know how well you can hear the cello in your guide track, how well you feel you can hear it, but that's a little moment that I just wanted to share, not just with the cello, but anyone who ever ends up with a line like that. I think you'll find that useful. It's coming right up on toward the end. I'm not going to end without encouraging you all to stick around and do another sing through, because just repetitions, and especially in company. I mean, here we are on Zoom together, whatever that means. And so go ahead and actually, let's take a page out of Gareth's notebook and say, I challenge you to, especially if you think you don't have it memorized and you'd be nervous about this, I challenge you to set your music down. Flip it upside down so you're not tempted. If it's there for safety, you'll probably use it. I'm not going to look either. I'm going to share my screen and then I'm going to make it blank. And just sing with the music. And if you get a little bit lost or you're not sure what's next, just listen to the music and try to emote it without singing, even if you're lost. Really try to be in the moment. That moment when you're seeing someone with their headphones on, oh, and they're jamming. And you're like, what are they listening to? That's where I want you to be, either while singing or while not singing, from as much as you have in you from the work you've done so far, whatever that may be. Sharing my screen. Back to the clap, which we will practice one more time.
One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, here we are at the end of a project. For some of you, your first. For others, another project. But this one's been pretty special. I love bringing to new music to being. You know, Gareth has written the piece. We've got the piano and the cello already performed, and now we are going to actually bring this thing to life. So I don't think I want to say good luck, although with some of us with cats on keyboards and sirens and things, we might need a little bit of luck. But I do want to say, make sure you're really singing your version of this piece. You know, you've attended rehearsals, you've been thinking about this, you've been working on it yourself. Now at this point, what I wish for you is to contribute your take on it, your place, your sense of meaning, and your voice, whether it's foggy from pollen in the air, which we've got a lot of here in the Philly area right now, whether your voice is older or younger, whether it's tired or feeling great. I hope that for you. I wish that for you. And do stay in touch, and we've got more projects coming, so keep an eye on that. There was an album project just announced, and in fact tomorrow, for anyone who was involved in Sogno di Volare, I am so excited to hear that come to life. That's going to be a lot of fun to finally... The wait on these things is so different than a concert, isn't it? You perform and then you wait to hear it. It's such a different... It's good. It's zen, I suppose. But I'm going to ask you, I'm a little over time, I'm going to invite you all to unmute just so I can hear the cacophony of your voices, these wonderful voices you're contributing. Thanks for bringing them. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you very much, Graham.
Lovely rehearsal.
Thank you, UK. Thank you, everybody. See you again soon.
There's-
Cheers. Stay
Good to meet everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
We need music.
Thank you, Frank. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you, Josh.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good observation.
Hello.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Graham.
Oh, so nice to
Thanks,
see you.
Michael.
Happy
Thanks for your
rehearsal
questions.
again.
Thank you, Graham. I'll see you again
Thank
sometime.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Patricia. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Joss, for your
Bye
help.
bye.
Bye, Marion.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for doing this. All right. Good night. I end